oh man, I just a sign to get old. He said, no, your eyes are just maturing. I said, oh.
Oh, I like that. I like that so much. I went to the eye doctor some years back. I think I was early 40s. And I said, doc, these devices, boy, and these lights on here and stuff got my eyes all messed up and blurry. I have to pull it back and stuff. Oh, he laughed. He laughed so hard. He said, no, dear, that's age.
That's funny because I'm
Like,
like, well, I don't think the phone has anything to do with it
that's
specifically. I mean, you can enlarge your font, yes, but you need glasses.
he said, dear, that's age. You're more than likely gonna need some glasses.
Yes,
He's
yes.
like, and I was like early 40s. I was looking at him like age, I still hadn't accepted the aging thing.
yes. I'm telling you, even when he told me 2 years ago that in a year I was going to need them, and I was like, okay. And then I was in school for like 10 months and then had to study for an exam for like another, 2 or 3 months. So about a year. And I think I noticed it increased during that time is when I actually
Okay.
started noticing when I was like reading my materials and I'd be
Yeah.
like going like this and pulling
Yeah.
back and shifting and get some more light. And it was like, no,
Hmm.
I think you just need
So I have
these.
my nifty reading glasses. I
Uh-huh.
have like three different pair, different colors and stuff. So I keep these on deck. Okay.
Yes. She's like, whatever I'm in the mood for is what I'm pulling out.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Tracy, the Sacred CEO, and I am the founder and director of Love My Womb Academy. And I've been doing the Monarch to Menopause series. So we were met with Mama Adila in our first part of our series. Then we were met with Dr. Lillian Browning. She is a women's health longtime women's health advocate. And now I am met with Kara Wellness. That's what we call her, Kara Wellness, because she's all about wellness and helping to strategize individuals into creating a healthy quality of life. So I'm going to just go ahead and allow you, Kara, to tell everybody who you are.
So, as you stated, I'm Kara, and most of my clients know me by Coach Kara, and I'm owner and CEO of the Wellness Lane. So, I offer fitness, nutrition coaching, and also health coaching, just depending on, like you say, the individual needs of the client. And my goal is to help women increase their confidence, boost their energy, and weight loss, no matter what stage of change they are in their life. So, learning those sustainable habits. So, when they're making those pivots, they feel confident in doing so.
Oh, I love that because as we age, especially women, a lot
Yes,
of men
ma'am.
too, but men are more muscle massed, so they can get off of, they can release fat a little more
Mm-hmm.
easily than women.
Mm-hmm.
But women, we notice that we start, our guts become a little enlarged, our hips become enlarged, our thighs, all those areas of where we need to have more fatty tissue for reproduction. And,
Absolutely.
and that actually becomes stubborn as we start coming up on
Mm,
33, 35. We like
yes.
metabolism slows down, stubborn fat, stubborn belly fat.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing all kind of diets. We're trying this, this system, that system, keto, high protein, no sugar, vegan,
It's like the list goes.
some other, just a cycle, and we're seeing no change. Now,
Mm-hmm.
something else with that is okay, as we begin to age and come up on 35s and 30s, where we get that stubborn weight. Something else that is definitely a factor for women is coming into perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed for me, it was a little stubborn for me to lose it in my 30s and 40s, but not as stubborn as when I came into menopause.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just went like to a halt. I wasn't losing any more than probably 10, 15 pounds doing a keto,
Mm-hmm.
strategy and all of this. And it was like, what is going on? Everybody's losing 40, 50 pounds on keto. And I'm like, mine just isn't doing all of that.
Yep.
So what I learned is that in the time of perimenopause, in many menopause, your body's hormones have definitely changed and shifted so much,
Absolutely.
in that cortisol level has risen and increased, and it's harder, so much harder to get off. We have mood swings, we have sleep disorders going on. You know, our blood sugar levels are different. Our stress
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety levels are different. I mean, think about it, you know, coming up in your 50s, you've accumulated all of these different experiences that were stressful. And
Yes.
you still haven't probably released all of that. And you just got all this compacted stuff. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
have grief, we have loss, you know, we've experienced depression, just a multiple of things in the first 50 years. And then now we're here and our hormones are changing. And
Oh
I'm just gonna
yes.
keep it real, Kara. We're like, what the fuck is going on?
They're literally raging. They're raging out of control, and then we feel personally that we're losing control, right?
Yes.
And as women, we often are so much in control of what's going on in our households with ourselves, and
Mhm.
then wham bam, here comes perimenopause, menopause, and we're like, what the hell? You've been doing this and that for say 5 to 10 years, and then all of a sudden, like you mentioned, there's a halt. Nothing's working. I'm trying all these things. I might see a little bit of change here, a little bit of change here, but nothing very drastic. So I think it's very important to remember, and I preach so heavily on muscle is longevity.
That is what I wanted to get to. That's what I noticed what shifted with me when I got to working out like very consistently and
Yes,
started intaking more protein.
key.
That's what changed it. Let's go.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when you get into your 30s, even in your 20s, like starting like almost every decade, you're losing like 3 to 5% of muscle, right? So you're losing muscle just naturally as the aging process. So if you're not lifting consistently in a strength training program, now whether that's on your own or with a trainer, and of course, how heavy you go depends on where you are and if you have any injuries or any underlying conditions. So we always want to be mindful that we're making decisions based off where we are, what our needs are, what our bodies can tolerate based off
Mhm.
like recent doctor's visits and our checkups and annual biometric testings, etc. But getting back to the muscle, building that muscle can only happen through strength training, putting that imposed demand on your body. So if you start strength training, the earlier you start, the better. I've been strength and conditioning probably since high school, and then it really just took off. Actually, when I had children, I started competing as a figure competitor and won the first and overall Arnold National Championship in Columbus, Ohio, back in
Congratulations.
2007. Thank you. And when I say strength training was the key, I had to put on muscle. And people are always like, how did you get so much muscle? And I think another thing you mentioned, just circling back, it takes time. We're always in such a rush and we lose patience and we're like, you say, let's go to this. Okay, this diet didn't work. Let's go to that. You have to
Mhm.
give it time. You have to be consistent. You have to give it time. You have to have the intensity there. And at least 3 days a week of strength training is what I would recommend, and going a little
Mhm.
bit heavier. You will not look like a man. I promise, ladies, you will not look like a man, but what you will be doing is you will be increasing your skeletal muscle mass, your lean mass, which is how much like muscle tissue, joint tissue that you have on your body. And that will weigh more. So maybe the scale may shift a little when you are increasing your strength training because and gaining lean muscle mass. But the higher your lean muscle mass, the higher your metabolism. And perimenopause is that's one thing that affects our metabolism. It starts to slow down, and like you mentioned, Tracy, you start to see that change in the abdomen area, in the hip area, but especially the abdomen area. And our body makeup, like you talked about the men, is very different. I mean, we're built to carry children. So our bodies they are just physically, anatomically just completely different than a man. So
Yes.
we have to think differently, right? So we have to make sure that we commit to getting in that gym and strength training so that we can have a higher metabolism, more skeletal muscle mass, and that's going to help us offset osteoporosis or that muscle loss that we automatically are going to have that we don't have any control over. But what we can control is making sure that we maintain enough so that we are strong, that we have muscle structure, that our metabolism's higher. It helps keep our immune system high. It helps with insulin sensitivity. I mean, the list goes on. So if you're not strength training, you are doing yourself a disservice.
I see the difference. I see the difference. And the more I study perimenopause and menopause. Okay, first off, let me say why I'm studying it. I'm studying it
Mhm.
because I'm going through it. You know, it's
Mhm.
it's
Amen.
it's an experience that I'm having. And anytime I'm having an experience, I am one of those people that want to research the experience.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
get all the knowledge I can, and find ways and solutions on how to just do it with, like we spoke earlier, with a quality of life, right?
Mhm.
So in going through perimenopause and feeling like I was losing my damn mind, and feeling very like 5150, I was crazy, and I just didn't know what was going on. I didn't have, all of the answers, all of the clues. I was high anxiety, depression, mood swings. The mood swings were just crazy.
They are.
I'm not
Mhm.
knowing that this is all hormonal. The only thing they basically tell us is we hear is hot flashes, hot flashes. Well, I wasn't having all them hot flashes, but I was having all the other symptoms, and I didn't know what was going on with me. Thank God for Dr. Jada, who did my blood panel, and we went through, and she was like,
So
baby, this
important.
is, yeah, you're going through menopause. You're going through perimenopause. She asked me about my cycles, and cycles were
Mhm.
changing. And,
Yeah.
so we got through that, and she was able to help me with hormone replacement therapy, all natural
Mm.
hormone replacement therapy, which really helped to regulate things.
Mhm.
However, in that regulation, now it was like, okay, I can focus, because when I was going through perimenopause, I had no mental clarity.
Yeah.
I
That
could
brain
not
fog. Yeah.
focus. Yes,
Mhm.
right. It was straight up
Mhm.
brain fog. So now, once I've gotten my hormones, together. And
Mhm.
another thing too, I witnessed, Kara, is that thyroids are also
Yeah.
an issue as we age too. And I want to
They
get
are.
into that in a
Can be.
minute. But
Mhm.
I begin, when I got clarity, it was like, okay, now work on your body. Work on, and now in my 50s, I'm actually working on the person that I've always wanted to be.
That's
And
beautiful.
instead of looking at it and saying, why did you take so long? I'm like, better late than never, honey. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna age beautifully. Well, you know what I mean? I would
Yes.
love to think about, why couldn't you get this in your 30s? Well, I just didn't. It is what it is. I had to go through my experience in my way on my
That's
journey, right?
correct. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that personal journey for everyone.
So I love how you mentioned that experienced it differently in your own time, your way. And that's no matter what you're going through, whether it's perimenopause, menopause, if you're Hashimoto's, PCOS, if you're trying to lose weight, and it maybe some of those conditions are not specific to you as well, but everybody is unique. So what's going to work for me? Like if you tried, a holistic approach with the hormone therapy, the natural way, that may not work for another person. And you have to understand and do your own research, be an advocate for yourself so that you can understand what it is that your body needs so that it can benefit you and not harm you down the road. Because there are lots of benefits, there are lots of things that have been researched and that are out there today. We're so fortunate with science and studies and things of that nature that we do have options, but it's really understanding what's going to work for you and going back to understanding your levels. It was so funny. I was, before you even called me about coming on, I was talking to a girlfriend who lives out in LA, and she just went to a doctor out there and she got all her blood work done. Because if you go to your regular annual physicals and things of that nature, they're looking for certain biometrics and tests, right?
Markers.
Specific
Mm-hmm.
things, markers, but not specific necessarily to perimenopause and menopause, right? Those hormonal levels. So there are different panels that are needed specifically for that. And it does cost a little bit, but it's better to get that and invest in that so that you know exactly what you specifically need. Because with certain hormone replacement therapies, they can have a makeup that is specific to you. So it won't look like what Tracy needs. It won't look like what Coach Kara needs. It's
Right.
going to be very specific to you. So it's very important that on your journey, you're asking the questions, being an advocate for yourself. And if a doctor is giving you a hard time or telling you no, or not seeming to have not an interest in really empathizing with where you are, you may want to consider changing doctors, interviewing, asking some of your friends, some of your peers, some of your women in your community what doctors they're using, and maybe you need to make a change. So it was going to look different for everybody.
Wow. Thank you for that, because I think people are looking for that cookie cutter way of
Yes,
doing things, and there is no cookie cutter
there
way.
is
Everyone
not.
is having their own journey. Let's talk a little bit about how thyroid also can affect our journey into releasing the weight and the menopause.
Well, it's very similar. You know, you're talking about different hormone levels and hypo and hyperthyroidism. Again, going back to PCOS, those things like affect our, is makes us very insulin sensitive, affects
Yes.
our hormones, and those things also may require you being on some type of medication to help regulate that, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe having your thyroid removed. But again, it still goes back to speaking on what looks like it will work for one person may not work for another, but understanding and doing your due diligence is going to be key in the success of your journey and getting to where you want to be, so that you feel empowered and confident about making those decisions and continuing on with your wellness journey.
And I just want to say, I see that you are a mature woman, but you look amazing. Like your
You.
skin, and I met you in person. I had the opportunity of meeting you in person, and you are just gorgeous. Skin
Thank
is
you.
flawless. Like you can tell you've been taking care of yourself. Like you've been very conscientious about your body and having a relationship with yourself. How important is it? Say people, because we as women divide ourselves up so much. We are dividing ourselves among people, places, and things all the time.
All the
Let's
time.
talk about how important it is to have this personal relationship with yourself and your body.
Woo, you just, I almost had a little like moment.
You got triggered, a little
I got
triggered.
triggered, a little trigger. It one thing I always said, so I was married for 13 years. And after divorcing, I was a young wife, mother, and I made a decision to leave my marriage. I was not happy. I was not feeling confident. And you would think, well, why is she not confident? I had all the things. I mean, my husband was very successful man. We had a beautiful home. We had, I mean, you name it. I could walk into anywhere and get whatever I
The
wanted.
things.
But I would tell you, my friends used to say, you are the most unhappiest millionaire I know. And I wasn't even a millionaire, y'all. That's just a figure of speech. But just
Yeah.
saying, you know what I mean? We weren't hurting for anything. We lived a really good life, right? But if you're not happy with yourself, if you're not working from the inside out, what comes out is not attracting the good energy that you need, right? And I decided that that's not what I wanted. I didn't want my children to see me, struggling to be happy in an unhappy marriage, lost, and confused, not taking care of myself. Now, one thing I will say, exercise has always been a part of my life. I've always been involved in like sports and things of that nature. So I've always just made a decision. Like it is a choice. Every day you wake up, you have a chance and a choice. And I tell my clients, do you have 5 minutes? Because sometimes all you need is 5 minutes. It could be a 5 minute walk, it could be a 5 minute stretch. And then as you grow and mature and life pivots and changes, it may look very different. So now, whereas I used to lift super, super heavy when I competed, and I did that with two children, working out 2 times a day, working part time, and even after leaving my marriage, still was doing that. But I showed up better when I took care of myself first. So that was my driving force. It made me feel good. And it's the one thing you can control. And so when I talk to my clients, it's like, look at your life and your schedule. Where can you carve out time for yourself? You have to make it a non-negotiable, because nobody's going to give it to you. And if you don't take it, people are going to walk the hell all over you.
Hold on.
Understand that.
Did y'all hear her? She said you have to make it a non-negotiable. Write that word down. I need you to marinate on that. Go ahead. Go
But
ahead,
it's
Kate.
true. It has to be a non-negotiable. You have to set aside the time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. And I know you all hear that all the time, but it's a fact. And you all have a chance and a choice. And every day is a gift. So you need to be able to pour into yourself before you can pour into others. And I was such a better person, not only for myself, but to my children and to the things around me, my friendships, my family, when I was able to show up for myself and doing something that made me feel good. And I also knew the benefits of it. I've always been pretty much very health conscious. And so creating that discipline, there are days I tell you, I mean, even now, I don't want to get up sometimes and work out. I don't, I I despise working out in the middle of the day. Today I got on my bike at 12:45 because it
Mhm.
was just like I wanted to get to the grocery store first. So I reprioritized my day, but I still made sure that I made time for it because you can. It's a choice. And if you don't choose you, who will?
Come on.
Nobody's showing up to save us. So at the end of the day, you've got to show up for yourself. And once you start to do those things for yourself, pour into yourself, move your body physically, put good things in your body because y'all, it's just as important. And abs are made in the kitchen, not doing abs on the floor like I did today. Okay. I'm just going to be clear because I people always say, well, how do I get that? It is not by just doing abdominal exercises. So you've got to make a discipline of doing these things and carving out that space for yourself. And it may look like, okay, here's my calendar. I have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have 5 or 10 minutes here. I have 20 minutes on this day, and I have, 30 minutes on this day. The key, consistency. If you consistently do it, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, if you consistently show up, you'll see the results. This is the long game. It's like when you invest. I know a lot of you hear about investing in your financial future. This is investing in your health, your
Yes.
physical, emotional, and mental well being are all tied together. And so if you don't set aside the time, make it a non negotiable, and show up, you're going to be dying on the inside, physically and mentally. You will eventually die. I mean,
You were
that's
talking
just,
to my soul. You
it's
talking to
just
my soul because I
management.
felt like
Yeah.
that. I felt like I had served and shared and given so much that I felt myself dying inside.
Mm-hmm.
I felt myself dying inside, and I made, some of my story. I made
Yes.
drastic like
Yes.
changes for
Yes.
me, for me, right? So let's talk a little bit. What are some things that we can do to create some disciplines that will help us to be able to lose some weight and take care of ourselves better going
Mm-hmm.
through our perimenopause?
So, so first, I'll speak to not only we've addressed the physical component and the importance of strength training, the importance of being an advocate for yourself,
Mhm.
going to your doctors and your annual checkups, right? The other thing is making sure that you're putting good things in your body. Food. They're making sure that you are balancing it with protein, carbs, and fats. I call those your three macronutrients. Those are so important, and making sure that your body's getting what it needs. Everybody's body needs a certain amount of calories on a daily basis just to survive. Then you can take into account the fact of your activity level. And then if you're trying to lose weight, you need to be in a deficit. But if you're not eating enough just to support your body to function, then you're going to have muscle atrophy, you're going to be fatigued, you're going to feel weak, all of those different things. You're not going to have good mental clarity. So it is important that we eat. I came up with a framework called diet, crushing diet culture, right?
Good.
You have to develop, you need to implement so that you can feel empowered and so that you thrive. So that's part of my coursework and framework that I do for my clients. And it's really important to develop an awareness. So I would say that's the first thing. What is it and how can I fill in the gaps? So maybe you drink a lot of soda and not don't eat a lot of vegetables. So let's prioritize that, right? Maybe I'm not getting enough sleep. Maybe I'm not moving my body enough. So we want to make a list of things that we know that we want to implement
Right.
so we can develop that awareness, and then we start implementing things to be able to do it. So maybe you don't have a lot of time during the day, but when you get home while your son or daughter, if you have children, these are just scenarios, is doing their homework. Say you have like a little walker, the walking pad, or maybe you have a treadmill, or maybe you can go walk the block, right?
Mhm.
Because then you're pairing something together. So you've got your food warming in the oven, your kids doing the homework, and you're on the walking pad. So three birds right there, done, right? So you've implemented a strategy, you've developed an awareness, you know that you need to implement these things. Now that you're doing them, you're feeling more empowered and more confident. You're like, wow,
Mhm.
I can do this. I can create this discipline. So sometimes it just comes down to linking and pairing things together. So with like if you go out to get the mail, maybe like, oh, every time before I go out to get the mail, I'm gonna drink 4 ounces of water. Because maybe your goal is to drink more water. So it doesn't have, everybody thinks it has to be these big changes. Like, yes, you have these big audacious goals, but if you don't break them down into small steps or habits, they can become overwhelming. You can feel unsuccessful because you're not reaching those goals. But when you implement those small strategies to get there, then you're going to feel like you're thriving. And then you just rinse and repeat with the next one. So I would encourage people to make a list: what I can control, what I need support with, and what I need to let go of. And then based off of that list, you start prioritizing those things and picking one thing to work on. And then each week you add something. So you're stacking each week so that you don't have to feel overwhelmed that you have to do everything all at one time, because it's not all or nothing.
Sometimes we think like that, though. We think it's all or nothing. Like we have to just do everything all at one time, one day. But it's gradual. It's
It is.
gradually adding things
Mm-hmm.
to your lifestyle, right? For
That's right.
lifestyle change.
Sustainable changes. Absolutely.
I want to say something. I want to say it feels so good keeping my word to myself,
It's
having
powerful.
integrity with myself. When I say I'm going to do it, I do it for
Mm-hmm.
me. There's been so many times we have sacrificed so much and haven't kept our words to ourselves.
Absolutely.
That part, and we get so far removed from who we are due to that very
Mm-hmm.
fact right there. And just me being able to keep my word to myself. What I
Mm-hmm.
say I'm going to do, I do.
That's right.
Okay? Like every day I do some form of activity. Whether it's
Mm-hmm.
going to the gym doing strength training, or I'm walking my 2 miles, or I'm doing my
Yes.
yoga, it's something each day I'm going to do, right? This
Yes.
morning I didn't get to get out and do my walk. But guess what? I'm going to do it when I leave this. When I leave this, I'm
Yay.
going to get my walk in, because guess what? It's warmed up a little more. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And it's the breeze is actually really nice right
It
now.
feels
So
great
yeah,
out there today. Yeah.
I'm going to take advantage of the time. But the biggest thing is I have to keep my word to myself. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't make it this morning like I usually do. And usually I'm best in the morning. First thing as I get
Me
up,
too.
yeah. First time, get up an hour in after I've done my tea, my meditation, whatever, or got myself together. Within an hour from me getting up, I'm already active. I'm
Yes.
doing something towards my health goals, right?
Yep.
Also reading. Like I've said, I want to read more. Like I said, okay, I want to read at least 30 minutes. Some days I'm off, but guess what? Like when I have free time, it's like, okay, go read. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm conscious of what I've told myself, and I'm committed now.
Yes.
I'm a
Yeah.
lot more committed. And
Yeah.
I think it has to do with um discipline. Let's talk about how important it is to
Ooh.
be disciplined. We've associated being disciplined with a lot of negatives, because when we're
Mm-hmm.
young, we're disciplined. It's usually to change behavior in some type
Mm-hmm.
of punishing way so that we don't do something, right? So it's
Yeah.
called discipline. So we try to shy away from discipline, but discipline actually is connected to freedom. Let's talk a little bit about discipline.
Ooh. It definitely is. If you can create space for whatever change you're trying to make. And I'll piggyback off of what you mentioned about, let's just say, reading. So if you're saying, okay, my goal is to read 30 minutes a day, or whenever I get the free time, even if I didn't get the 30 minutes in, I'm going to pick up my book. But if
Yes.
you put that on your calendar as a reminder, like you schedule everything else. If you have children, you're scheduling their practices, you're scheduling pickups, you're scheduling family activities, you're scheduling stuff for work. So why can't you put these things on your schedule for yourself, right? So it could be you're at work at your desk, like you say, and then it's like, oh, I have a few minutes. I'm going to go ahead and get some of my reading in, right? So then you're getting it done. Because even if you did it for 5 minutes, like you said, but you didn't do it for the full 30, or even if you did 5 or 10 pages, it's an accomplishment. And that means you're 1% better than you were yesterday. And the goal is to be 1% better every day. But the more that you do it, you create that discipline. And that's when you feel empowered and successful. And then you feel proud of yourself and you feel good. And you're like, I can do this. And the more you just keep doing it, it just becomes a habit. It becomes a habitual, just like we know how to get up and tie our shoes, or if you get up and make your bed every day, the same thing. And another tip with if you're trying to get more reading in is at night, because I was doing this for a little while, I put the book by my bed so that when I get in bed at night, instead of like flipping through my phone and being on IG and having the light be disrupting still and my mind being all over the place, I just pick up the book and I say, I'm going to read 5 pages. And that's what I do. So again,
And
it's
it starts
creating.
off as 5 pages. The next thing you know, you did 10.
Exactly, especially if it's a good one, right? So,
Yes.
but you're creating that discipline of doing it all the time. And I'll say this, for example. So I have 2 young adult children. They still stay with me. And they've been making their bed since I can remember, right? So when they would wake up in elementary school, I would say, make your bed in the morning before you go in the bathroom and start brushing your teeth and getting ready. Like the first thing you do is make your bed.
I still do that.
And I do it. They still
Mhm.
they live with me now. Still, even when my son was off in college in the dorms, he does it. I taught my kids, every Saturday or every weekend between these hours, you need to make sure you get your clothes washed, right? When you
Mhm.
finish your dinner, you need to make sure that it's a habit, right? You
Yes.
pick your dishes up, you wash them off, you put them in the sink. Yes, I may have cooked, but I'm not your maid. So let's be clear. But you instill those disciplines and habits in your children too. So when you're doing things, like if you say, even, and maybe you can have somebody in your family hold you accountable. It's like, hey, I want to read a little bit more. So can you make sure you check in with me sometime during the day to see if I've done my reading? Because we all want and need a little accountability sometimes. I know there's things that I need more accountability for, and other things maybe not so much, but there are some things that I do. Nobody's perfect and we're all like a work in progress. So it's really important that if you plan these things out and you stick to them and be consistent, that consistency builds discipline. The discipline are those habits that you continually start to do that make you a better version of yourself.
Thank you for that. What are
Mm-hmm.
some foods we can
Ooh.
begin to incorporate to lose the belly fat while experiencing perimenopause and menopause?
So what I'll first say is most of the women that I work with don't eat enough. And I know that sounds, we were like, what do you mean I don't eat? If I eat this, I eat that. So maybe you're eating a couple meals, then are you eating out a lot? So limiting processed foods will be the
Okay.
first one. Watching added sugar. So not natural sugar in food, but like if you're eating things like that come in a package or drinking juices, like looking at the added sugar, that stuff adds up. And as
Yes.
females, our estimated amount to not to have any more than 26 grams of added sugar per day. Okay. So processed foods, limit or get rid of processed foods. Added sugar, incorporate more fruits and vegetables, and eat lean sources of protein. And if you're not a big meat eater, you still can get your protein in. Sometimes you have to be a little bit more creative, but you can still get it in. Maybe you'll have to supplement with like a protein powder. There are plenty of great like plant-based protein powders if you are vegan. But even when you're looking at like supplementing, like if you do protein bars and mixes and things of that nature, again, added sugar, what's in it, you want the least amount of ingredients when you're looking at your labels as well. Seeded breads, like when you're looking at grains and things like that. And
Yeah.
carbs are your friend, ladies. Carbs are your friend. I know
We
we've
say
kind of
that,
been,
but natural carbs. We're talking about the natural carbs, not
yes,
the
yes,
packaged carbs. The natural carbs are a friend. And I
yes.
had to tell one of my sweet ladies that the other day. I was like, she said, well, I haven't been eating carbs and I'm not eating sugar. I said, look, our body needs carbs. Get the natural sugars and the natural carbs from the fruits and the vegetables, please. Like, don't
Yes.
don't just say, okay, I gotta stay away because they're cursed. No, our body still needs those.
It needs it. It's our body's preferred source of energy for one, and then the phytonutrients, vitamins, minerals, all those things that you get from fruits and vegetables are so important in helping our bodies to be energized and just to be fueled properly as well. So the more nutrient dense food you can eat more fruits and vegetables because they're very nutrient dense. Like mean you get a lot more bang for your buck and not as many calories. So making sure that you're incorporating them. The dark leafy, the darker the better. Dark leafy green, berries. I eat a lot of berries. I eat a lot of dark leafy greens, arugula, greens, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, and then
Kale.
if kale. And if you're
Mhm.
not big, like I say, on a lot of lean meats as for your protein source, you've got eggs, and then there are some vegetables that are higher in protein as well that you can incorporate. But again, the more natural your food sources, the better. Less processed food, limit or no added sugar. And then I'll just touch on this because this is one of the questions I get all the time. What about alcohol?
You
And
have
I
to
and
limit that. I had to reduce it. I love good margarita. I had to reduce margaritas to once, maybe every 4 or 5 months. Like for real. Like
yeah,
I was,
it changes.
yeah, because that sugar and that alcohol was slowing down my metabolism and staying straight on my gut, and it was harder for me to lose weight.
And you know why? Because alcohol is a toxin. So when your body is processing alcohol as you're having cocktails or libations, whatever you want to call it stops breaking down anything else because it
Ah,
sees it as a toxin. So it's not doing anything else but trying to get this alcohol processed, digested, through your system. That's it. So that's one of the things. And then, like you mentioned, as you're getting older and experiencing hormonal changes, like your body doesn't receive it the same, right? When you wake up the next day, it doesn't feel the same, or you might have a headache, and then maybe you could drink white versus red, and now it's swapped, or maybe just a vodka or tequila or whatnot. And then if you think about it, if you're doing mixed cocktails and you're doing all those simple syrups, there's all your added sugar, and typically your headaches typically come from all the excessive sugar, not so much the alcohol, yes, but when you add in all of that together, it's just like a bomb waiting to go off inside of you. I'm just
you
going
made
to say it
you
how it
said a
is.
good point. You said alcohol is toxins. They're toxins, so everything is shutting down. There's no drive in the metabolism. There's no, carrying the protein for more weight loss. There's nothing
Mm-mm.
happening. It's a
Nope.
toxin to the body. And I recognize that my mental clarity, my body changes,
Yeah.
like everything really, really shifted when I stopped doing all the social drinking.
Mm-hmm. And
Because
it's and and
in this culture, we're taught to eat and drink, just eat and
eat. We
drink
that's
and
all we do.
eat
Eat,
and do
drink,
it
hang out.
mindlessly. Like
Yeah.
mindlessly, just
Mm-hmm.
like
Yeah.
don't even be conscious of it. And
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of it now.
Yeah. And now people are getting way more creative with non-alcoholic beverages. And then there are a lot of ways you can get some other benefits from making those mocktails as well. But I mean, I have an occasional glass of wine. I love a margarita.
I
The
was just
goal
gonna ask
is
you, what about red wine, Cara?
that's my favorite. It's my
Cara,
favorite.
I
And
know, girl,
because white wine gives me a headache. See, so
I love red
everybody's
wine.
different. But
I
I
love
love me some red wine, and I'll
yeah,
have some glasses of red wine. Everything is in moderation when you think about
yes.
it. Even like for myself, like I go out to eat sometimes, I have cocktails sometimes, but it's all in moderation. So maybe like for example, maybe if you are going out a lot and maybe that's something you notice you could cut back in. So maybe you say, okay, I'm only going to eat out 2 times this week and I'm only going to have 5 drinks. Now, 5 drinks over the course of 7 days means if you have them all 5 tonight at the party tonight on Saturday night, that's a wrap. You're done. But if you have one or two on Monday and then one on Wednesday and then two on Friday, well, there you go. There's your 5 drinks for the week. So instead of denying yourself things that you enjoy, then maybe you set some boundaries or parameters
Right.
around that specific thing, and that can be that way you still like say don't feel like you're just
Five
denying
drinks a
yourself.
week
Yeah.
is a lot, Carol. That's a lot.
Some people drink. Listen
Yeah.
now, I done
But
been
when I
around
was
some
younger,
folks.
oh, no, when I was younger, 5 drinks a week wasn't nothing. I could do that a night. Yes, I was on.
Listen, I'm a cooker, right? I love to cook. I love to play
Okay.
around. I'm not like a chef and can do all the fancy things, but I just love getting in the kitchen and trying different things, right? But
Yeah.
I would like for a while, I would like open a bottle of red wine and I'd have like, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a glass of red wine. And I'm just in there and I got the
That's
music
my
going,
thing.
and then I look up and I'm like, oh, that's half the bottle. So it's not like
And
I
it's easy to do.
intentionally, it's just easy to do. So you just have to be a little bit more mindful and aware of those
Okay.
things. So another way for a tip for people, if you're trying to make some changes to your nutrition on a daily basis, I would encourage people to track their food. because it brings more mindfulness and awareness, because we always think, oh, I'm eating enough, or oh, I got in enough protein, or oh, I did this. But then you get that stuff in those tracking apps and it's night and day. And it's not to say that you're not eating things that are not good for you, but if you're still not eating enough, that's not good either. So the only way to do that is maybe to track for like a week, kind of see where you fall. And some people may find that tracking's very much so keeping them accountable, and some people may find it very tedious and don't want to do it anymore. But at least you know how to go back to it. So if you're trying to reach a specific goal, you're going to have more awareness by making sure you know what you're putting in your mouth.
I think that that's very important, being very aware of what you are eating on a daily basis, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times we're not mindful and we're not really conscious that we ate, like, had an enormous amount of sugar based on some
Yeah.
packaged foods that we ate, you know, in that one sitting, or and then that night we had some dessert. Like, we'll forget a lot of times what we've eaten
Yeah.
previously in
Easily.
the day,
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly. And if you do, another tip is if you go out to eat with friends, I have a girlfriend, when we go out, we always split a meal. And if we want dessert, we always split the dessert. So it's
Yeah,
not like we're giving up the foods and things we love. And it's not that we're not going to out to dinner with our girlfriends or families or whatnot, but there are ways to kind of like just moderate, in moderation, have those things that you enjoy on a regular
right.
basis without over consuming it, because we really are over consuming foods when we go out to eat. It's portion sizes are way out of
And
control.
that's why we're
And
always
so,
taking some home.
mm, yep. And I would say, like, if when they bring your food out, sometimes I'll say, depending on what it is, I'm like, you can go ahead and bring me a box. And I just box it half up and I save the rest for lunch the next day. So then you get 2 meals out of it also. And you really just don't need that much food in a setting. And that's why you're feeling like sluggish and tired. And then when you're going out there, you don't know how the food's being prepared or what's in the food. So there are a lot of little things, like when you're first starting out with some of the health and fitness goals, or just even with dealing with menopause, like what we're putting into our bodies is so important, because our hormones are all over the place. We're experiencing a lot of insulin sensitivity. And so the more aware we are of what we're putting in our body, it's going to be more beneficial to us down the road.
And if I also make the suggestions that we eat,
Hmm.
based on if you have any womb conditions such as
Hmm.
fibroids and PCOS and things like that, or estrogen related cancers, be mindful, like you can begin to start eating some higher estrogen foods. You know what I'm saying? To
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
change the dynamics of what's going on with your body hormonally, right?
Absolutely.
But
Hmm.
those womb conditions and those other conditions are a factor, because you
Hmm.
don't want to be taking in too much estrogen and then you have these estrogen related conditions, because
Yes.
that's too much and that can have an adverse reaction. So
Absolutely.
what you gave us some key tips on how to get started. You gave us some key tips on how to become more disciplined. You gave us some key tips on how to be more aware of what we're inputting in our
Hmm.
body. You've also given us some key tips on how to strategize each
Hmm.
day on becoming a healthier, right?
Hmm.
So, how important is it? And this is, we're going to kind of wrap it up.
Okay.
How important is it for you to understand and be your own health and wellness advocate?
Your body, right? So at the end of the day, if you're paying attention to yourself, like if you're doing, like we're coming up on October, National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So it's important that not just in October, but every month, right? That you're
Mhm.
doing your checks in the shower, understanding how to do that. When you're going to the doctors, making sure that you're asking the questions. If you are feeling sleepy and you're just like more tired and fatigued and you're not really sure, like asking the questions. Again, I can't emphasize enough that we have to be our own advocates and we have to go in there. You are in control of what's going on. You pay money to be there to be seen. Don't let them push you out of that office in 5 or 10 minutes because they trying to, get their things checked off. Okay, that's not what we're going to do. I deserve to be in here, and I deserve for you to show up for me so I can ask these questions. So be prepared, and maybe it might mean taking a loved one with you so that you can make sure that, because sometimes we get emotional about things. I know I had a girlfriend who went and she was talking about her perimenopause and going into menopause, and she was having a really hard time emotionally. So it was hard for her to get a lot of things out, and she felt like she missed some things. So maybe it's even taking someone with you could be helpful as well. But being an advocate for yourself, making sure that you stay aware and pay attention to things. If you're noticing things that you haven't noticed in like the couple months and they're still ongoing, keep a journal or put a note in your phone to make sure that you, when your appointment comes up, that you address these things. And if it's somewhat concerning and you're like, you know what, I'm really just not feeling right, go to the doctor.
Mhm.
Go call and make the appointment, get in there, because you just never know. And it's always say, is what my grandmother used to say, better be safe than sorry, honey, better be safe than sorry. So you got to show up for yourself, ask the questions, do your research. Don't to go down too far the rabbit hole with the internet, people, but make sure that the doctors and things that are, because they work for you. So let's be clear. Make sure the doctors that are working for you, that you feel comfortable and confident in what the services that they're providing for you. And if you don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to speak up and leave reviews, because it's important. And then we can share this information with our sisters so that we can make sure that we are advocating for each other, being supportive and helping each other show up like we need to.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
How can we find you, Kara? How can we
So
find
I'm at wellness lane underscore Kara with a Kara on Instagram and also on Facebook as well. And if you would like to email me, it's info@thewellnesslanecoaching.com. I offer complimentary wellness checks to just do like a check-in and a short visualization to help you kind of prioritize. And if you want to go a step further, we can go a step further after that. But yes, I'd love to see some people in the space.
Okay, are you helping more women now coming into menopause?
Yes, we are more
Good.
focused on that. And actually, oh, and too that we're going to be hosting a half day retreat in November in Sandy Springs, and it's all about self care. It's called the Era of Ease. So we're going to be doing a lot of reflection and sound bowl healing and things of that nature. So we'd love to have everybody out if they want to come, and hopefully you'll still be able to join us.
Yes, the era of ease. I would love to be there, especially just the title, the
Mm-hmm.
era of ease, because that's something we as Black women, we don't
Yeah.
know. That is ease is not in our vocabulary, relax is not in our vocabulary, and rest is not in our
Not in our
vocabulary,
vocabulary.
honey. So come
Mm-hmm.
on, the era of ease. And what date is that?
That's November 16th.
Mhm.
From 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. in Sandy Springs. Once you sign up, the link to the exact location will be given out.
Okay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you. And you
Yes.
guys definitely go check her out. She was an awesome, she's an amazing person, but she's also an
Thank you.
awesome resource to have in your arsenal for feminine health and wellness. And I just love her. So go check her
Love you
out. You know, I'm
too.
Tracy, the Sacred CEO. I'm the founder and director of Love My Womb Academy. And I am a woman who is aging audaciously, honey, but
Hey, I love that.
yes, but I am still here for the sisterhood and for the women who are into creating a quality lifestyle while aging, and also to increase the level of your womb health. It's very, very, very important. So I love you. Have
Love
a
you
great
too.
day. Peace
Thank you
and
so much.
blessings. Go check out our Monarch to Menopause class coming up October 5th. Right now, we have a special. You get $200 off. Use the word transition, all caps. Monarch to Menopause. Love My Womb Academy online.com. Peace and blessings. And go check out our free
Bye.
courses over there as well. Bye, Cara. Thank you.
Bye.